Helland, last name spelled H-E-L-L-A-N-D. I'm the Grundy County State's Attorney. I'm also joined out here with Assistant State's Attorney, First Assistant State's Attorney Russ Baker, who's a prosecutor in my office. To my left, we got the Morris Police Chief Alicia Stuffus. We also have the Grundy County Sheriff Ken Briley, and I have the victim's family from the homicide yesterday directly behind me. And what had happened yesterday is that law enforcement got a call to 400 to 500 block of Twilight Drive at approximately 4:20 p.m. And it was a very thorough investigation, and it was a very quick investigation. And what had happened was ultimately the investigation determined that a 16-year-old committed a first-degree murder. And today in court, the Grundy County State's Attorney's Office filed 6 counts of first-degree murder against the 16-year-old. I will not share the 16-year-old's name because I'm not going to glorify somebody who commits a murder in our jurisdiction. It's as simple as that. He remains nameless as far as I'm concerned. He had a criminal history, and through the course of the investigation, it was determined that the offender in this case had been in the area of the 400 to 500 block of Twilight Drive and was soliciting a ride. And a occupant at an apartment complex directed the offender to leave. And a short time later, what had happened in the 500 block of Twilight Drive, again approximately 4:20 p.m., is that the offender murdered Beverly Lambert, 25 of Shorewood, who was simply in the 500 block of Twilight Drive to pick up a child from the babysitter. The child was under the age of 2. It appears that there was no relationship between the victim and the 16-year-old offender. As the investigation continues, more information will come along. This is very much an active investigation. It had occurred less than 24 hours ago. Through the Sheriff's Department, the Morris Police Department, the Will Grundy Major Crimes Task Force, several items of evidentiary value were collected. That evidence was collected and is going to be sent to a independent crime lab so we can get a lot of evidence analyzed, that we can get answers as soon as we can. The firearm that was used in this offense was a 9mm firearm. The victim was shot twice in the back of the head, and that was confirmed by the hospital. So the 6 counts, it was 3 counts per gunshot. 1 count was the actions that caused the strong probability of great bodily harm or death. Another count was shooting with the intent to kill, and the last count was a felony murder, committed armed robbery at gunpoint, taking a vehicle. That it wasn't uncommon for the victim to go to the babysitter's, pick up a young child, and leave the car running so the air conditioning would remain on in the vehicle. So once that vehicle was stolen from that location, is that through law enforcement tips that it was determined that there was a certain license plate number on Lambert's vehicle, and through the use of technology, law enforcement was able to track that vehicle to Joliet. And when the individual was in the 1500 block of John Street, which is not that far of a distance from Larkin and Jefferson Street, just there to the east, is that the 16-year-old offender fled the vehicle. During the short foot pursuit, a 9mm firearm was located, and that was taken and placed into evidence. So with this particular offense, I've never seen or heard of a 16-year-old in Grundy County being charged with first-degree murder. And the reason it was filed in adult court is that the Illinois statutes allow that if a 16-year-old commits a first-degree murder, it's excluded jurisdiction that it is not filed in juvenile court, but is filed in adult court. If this offense is committed by an adult, the sentence is 20 to 60 years in the Department of Corrections. There's truth in sentencing that applies. It'd be 100% sentence, and since a firearm was used, there'd be a 25-year firearm enhancement, so the sentence as an adult would be 45 years on a minimum to 85 years as an adult. However, our Illinois courts have been very active in talking about crimes committed by minors. And in this particular case, a 6-year-old that commits a murder, due to Supreme Court precedent and due to the codification of the laws in the state of Illinois, is that the maximum sentence on a first-degree murder case committed by a 16-year-old is actually 40 years at 100%. The adult sentencing does not apply, so the General Assembly made a distinction with the adolescent brain development that the sentence is lower than an adult. So with that being said, I don't have any to add unless from law enforcement to take the podium and talk for a moment. If not, that's fine, and I'll take some questions.
And I'd just like to thank the numerous other agencies that responded to the city of Morris. We're very fortunate to have a tight-knit group of chiefs in Grundy County, so I appreciate all the chiefs that showed up on scene, especially the Grundy County Sheriff's Department. They're usually our partners in these type of events, so I appreciate them. The Morris Fire Department, Mabus Division 15 for their support, as well as the Will County Major Crime Task Force. Of course, Joliet and Will County for their work on the other end in the apprehension. And then there's several other numerous agencies that we could thank, and we will at some point, but I will miss them if I try to do it now. So I just want to get that at. And then from there, I don't know if you have anything?
Ma'am, can you say your name and spell it, please?
Yes, my name's Alicia, A-L-I-C-I-A, last name Steffes, S-T-E-F-F-E-S. I'm the Morris Police Department Chief.
If we have any questions, we'll take questions now.
What was the bond set at?
The bond was set at $5 million, 10%. He'd have to post $500,000 cash. The next court date is August 18th at 10:30 a.m. in Judge Sobel's courtroom. And the Grundy County Grand Jury convenes twice a month. The next grand jury is going to convene on August 17th. So as the investigation continues, we're going to determine if we're going to file additional charges at that time. But this is a very active investigation. Again, the offense occurred less than 24 hours ago. And today, the public defender was appointed to represent the offender. The judge determined probable cause existed for 6 counts of first-degree murder, and that's where we're at with that. Any other questions?
Can you talk about his criminal history or no?
I'm not going to talk about the criminal history besides verify that the 16-year-old did have a criminal history, and that's a factor that the judge used to determine to set the bond at the $5 million, 10%. And I'm not going to talk about it, just the criminal history, due to the fact that it's juvenile in nature. Do you have any questions?
Sorry, so this, it sounds absolutely horrific. It almost feels like it was random, like she was just there at the wrong place, wrong time. Is that how you feel as well in this?
It's one of those things that as we had the bond court hearing today, we had a 2-page synopsis of what had happened. And that the state attorney's office was at the mobile command center and also the Morris Police Department last night to midnight. And I'm not in the best position to basically make comments about that. I don't know if you want to make comments about that or not. It's just from my standpoint, if it's not on an official report, I don't feel comfortable stating that as fact, because as the investigation occurs and other witnesses are interviewed, I don't know what the facts are until the investigation's complete. Do you want to comment about that?
It's still unfolding, and we hate to say something and then it changes later. So,
I mean, with being in a residential neighborhood in Morris at 4:20 in the afternoon, there's going to be a lot of work to be done. The most difficult work has been done with the apprehension of the offender and the good work of law enforcement with all the jurisdictions working together to share the information and quickly locate the victim's vehicle. I mean, that was incredible how quickly the shooting occurred from the apprehension, is that it was within a couple hours, which was incredible police work.
know it's obviously extremely sensitive, but is there anything you want to share about Beverly? I can't imagine losing a loved one like this, or do you just want to...
I think at this time, I've talked to the victim's family prior, is that they don't wish to make a statement at this time because, again, this was a situation that has happened within the last 24 hours. So the shock value of something happening to a 25-year-old woman in Grundy County, I think the community has the ripple impact of it is that it not only impacts the victim's family, it impacts the entire community. Is that I have never heard of an offender in Grundy County committing a murder at age 16 in the history of the county. This just does not happen here. We've seen an uptick in violence in this county over the last couple of years. We don't know why. We're not going to speculate, but we prosecuted multiple first-degree murders in the last couple of years. And it really has a ripple impact, and we just wanted to put out the information that we have at this time so the public is fully informed. Unfortunately, with social media, if we didn't give the facts that we're giving today, we didn't want people to spend the weekend just hypothesizing what happened, why was the victim murdered. We wanted to put out the information that we have available and is known as fact as we sit here today and as we presented at the bond court hearing.
This happened on January 1st. Would he be up for be released on cash bail, or how would that work?
Well, let's worry about January 1st when we get there. I'm worried about today and getting through today. But with bail reform, we'd have to basically file a motion to detain the individual. Is that the way the law has been interpreted with HB 3653 being signed by the governor's office is that the last 2 weeks of December, we're going to have to sit down and meet with the sheriff. And what's going to happen is that the interpretation of the law, and my interpretation is that if somebody's currently being held on cash bail, is that we're going to have to file a motion if this individual is in custody on January 1st to make sure that the individual remains detained under Illinois law. So this will be evaluated, the individual still in custody at the end of the year, evaluated on whether the requirements of the law are met that the individual can be detained. But that's the way we've interpreted the law, that the cash bail that's set now is going to be addressed at the end of December. But I'd all state that when somebody's in custody on a felony offense, they have a right to a speedy trial within 120 days. So as we sit here within 24 hours of a murder in Grundy County, is that there's a lot of road ahead and a lot of work that my office has to do in conjunction with the local law enforcement agencies to conclude this case with a successful prosecution. We're just at step one today with the court hearing. Any other questions? Have a good day.
You guys can come back and sign it.